Hello, my name is Morgan Beams, and this is my individual presentation over Australia. I'm going to take you through an overview of the country, a little bit about the culture, talk about the business outlook for Australia, and then I'm going to go over some of the HR specific challenges. So, a brief overview of Australia is that Australia is actually also a continent, not only a country. Its land mass is about 3 million square miles and is ranked 6th in land mass, just behind Russia, Canada, China, US of A, and Brazil. Although its land mass is so large, it only ranks 54th in population. It is believed that the country had indigenous natives that moved and lived on the continent from Asia about 40 to 60,000 years prior to the 1600s or 1700s when the Western civilization discovered the country. They have a parliament democracy government that is separated into 3 branches: parliament, executive, judiciary. But unlike the US, the executive branch answers to the parliament. In 1986, Australia ended all constitutional ties to the United Kingdom. But still, today, it holds Queen Elizabeth II head of state. They are also a member of various international organizations, including the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the Commonwealth of Nations, and Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation. Some interesting facts about Australia are that Australia has a larger population of camels than Egypt does. Voting in elections in Australia is compulsory, so you don't have a choice. For everyone that is 18 years of age or over, with an initial fine of $72 issued for non-voters. Despite this, they only get about 81% of the eligible Aussie voters to cast their votes. Australia was the second country in the world to grant women the right to vote, and this occurred in 1894. Australia is the driest of any continent on Earth other than Antarctica. The Great Barrier Reef is regarded as the world's largest living organism and is often listed as one of the 7 wonders of the natural world. Australia is also the only continent covered by a single country. Overview of the country's national culture is that the Australian culture is as broad and varied as the country's landscape. It is multicultural and multiracial. And this is reflected in the country's food, lifestyle, and cultural practices and experiences. Australia has an important heritage from its indigenous people, which plays a defining role in the culture's landscape. This diversity of influences creates a cultural environment in Australia that is lively, energized, innovative, and outward-looking. Over 25% of Australian residents were born overseas as of 2012, a number that is expected to increase rapidly. Someone from Sydney is typically referred to as a Sydney-sider, and those that are from Queensland are nicknamed banana benders. So the overall outlook on the business for Australia is that Australia is actually a highly developed country, ranking as the world's 12th largest economy. Their GDP is $1.2 trillion, as their GDP per capita is $48,712. Considering domestic and external drivers of growth, Australia's private consumption is on a steady incline. Exports have risen 40 points since 2010 and looks to continue to rise. Investment over the last 2 years has risen over 10 points. Employment and participation have also risen dramatically over the last 8 years. Their participation rate has risen about 2% since 2014. Employment rate has also risen 2%, while unemployment rate has dropped 0.5% since 2014. What can be causing these increases over time? According to the US News, Australia is the 7th best country to live, with a score of 9.2 out of 10, based on various categories that include how friendly, fun, pleasant a place is to live, the human rights and religious freedoms that people have, the technological expertise that it has to offer, and the rich history and quality of life. Their highest score in this poll is that is their quality of life. That means that Australia has a good job market, income equality, it's safe to live, well-developed education system, and they have a well-developed healthcare system. Overall, they have a strong financial system, low unemployment, low public debt, and a highly skilled workforce. The Australian economy is driven by exports with a strong focus on minerals, energy, and agriculture. Things to keep in mind when considering doing business in Australia include the payroll tax is levied by each state. So each state has its own tax bracket similar to the US without the federal. There is no legal entity that is a branch or a representative office. So a company must pay attention to the differences and requirements throughout the region. They use standard employment contract templates, but employment at will is not legal, and that non-competition clauses are enforceable only if deemed reasonable by local authorities. U.S. companies with Australian subsidiaries can trade with these countries with reduced or no tariffs in specified industries. Some interesting footnotes I found about doing business with Australians is that Australians are very straightforward when it comes to business, so they do not need to build relationships for a long time before doing business with you. They are receptive to new ideas. They appreciate modesty, so try not to oversell your company and do not even think of applying aggressive sales techniques. Try to be factual, friendly, and to the point, avoiding self-importance. If you manage to impress them, they will not make it obvious. Australians demonstrate modesty as much as they appreciate it. They can even downplay their own success, so do not jump into conclusions straight away. Be careful not to play along if they start to self-criticize themselves. If you find yourself challenged to a controversial discussion during a meeting, do not worry. It is nothing personal. And the decision-making will be slower than usual as the work environment in Australian business culture is collaborative. Top management will consult subordinates. Do not try to rush the decision. Patience is very much appreciated. The good news is that Australians do not find it hard to say no, so the answer will be clear and straightforward. Business hours are from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. For business purposes, it is best to visit the country from March to November, as the tourist season occurs from December to February. Some of the challenges that HR may find in a multinational company is that culture is a competitive advantage. Is especially significant when these changes are being driven by millennials, who will make up around 75% of the global workforce by 2025. With culture ranked as the top priority for Australian businesses, it is unsurprising that over half the executive leader respondents believe that leadership teams see culture as a potential competitive advantage, with 75% recognizing that changing demographics and talent markets are driving this change. Technology, business disruption, and the employee experience go hand in hand with the shifting demographics and culture change with regards to employee engagement. Identified by Australian respondents as the top priority, employees are being put at the center with digital HR tools and services, employee-empowered learning and engagement, and retention programs. From March 2018, the 457 visa will be abolished and replaced by a new temporary skills shortage visa. This TSS will be comprised of a short-term stream of up to 2 years and a medium-term stream for up to 4 years. It will impose more requirements than the current 457 program, including the requirement for visa applicants to have at least 2 years work experience in their skilled occupation before being considered. Some other changes is that franchisors and parent companies can now be held directly liable for underpayments of their franchisees and subsidiaries where they knew or should have reasonably known of the contraventions and failed to take reasonable steps to prevent them. Mandatory data breach reporting obligations is also a change, and that needs to be recognized. Businesses are now subject to new mandatory data breach notification regime, will face penalties up to $1.8 million if they fail to report data breaches in circumstances where serious harm could occur to an individual whose data has been compromised. They highlight the need for all businesses to establish clear data security policies to manage the risk of and response to external attacks and internal data breaches arising from the negligent or malicious acts of staff. Overall, it is my opinion that Australia is becoming a very strong contender with regards to the global market and seems to set the standard for companies growing internationally. I appreciate this time, and that's my presentation on Australia. Thank you.